Medicine Hat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Here we are once again debating legislation to amend the Electric Utilities Act. This is certainly not a new issue, and it is something my Wildrose colleagues and I have been hearing about for some time, not just from landowners in our constituencies, but from many people from all walks of life right across the province. Mr. Speaker, this legislation brings up the memory of Bill 50, the piece of legislation that removed, the requirement for an independent needs assessment process to take place before new transmission lines could be approved. Yes, you heard me correctly. This government removed an independent process and gave decision-making authority to Cabinet, to themselves. And then, Mr. Speaker, after the government passes legislation which took away the independent assessment of transmission lines, legislation that was opposed by Albertans and opposed by the Alberta Utilities Commissions themselves, the PC Cabinet unilaterally approved 4 major transmission projects at a cost of $16 billion without ever demonstrating these projects were needed. I also feel the need to once again point out to the members opposite, as many of my colleagues have already done, that both the Alberta Utilities Commission and the Critical Transmission Review Committee are opposed to Cabinet approval for transmission lines. They don't want to see lines approved for no reason. They, too, want a public needs assessment. Albertans have been calling for repeal of Bill 50 for years, and we in the Wildrose have been consistently calling for an independent needs assessment to be reinstated and a cancellation of the 4 major transmission lines. The new piece of legislation before us today, Bill 8, includes one of the things we've been calling for. If passed, this bill will ensure that all future projects will be based on a thorough process and an independent needs assessment. But, Mr. Speaker, too little, too late. Our province already had an independent needs assessment for these projects in place before the PCs decided to change the process to give themselves the power of approval. Simply put, they used Bill 50 to ram through the approval for transmission lines they wanted, but that Alberta doesn't need. Not only are these Bill 50 lines not needed, they will increase the power bills for residential users and for commercial and industrial users in our province. And in Cypress Medicine Hat, seniors and concerned ratepayers, one after another, have contacted me about this grave concern. We all know what happens when the cost of energy for residential consumers go up. Albertans will directly pay more out of their pockets for the same amount of electricity they've always used in their homes. But what happens when the power rates for industry and business dramatically increase? And what happens when these industries and business account for 80% of the electricity consumed in our province? Mr. Speaker, this is what happens. Businesses large and small will see their power rates skyrocket. They will then move out of our province and into a jurisdiction with more affordable electricity. Our province will lose investment and Albertans will lose jobs. Industry-killing electricity hikes will not only cause business to leave our province, but those looking to make new investments will think twice about investing in our province. The worst part of this, Mr. Speaker, is that there is no reason for what I have just outlined to occur. This government has not and cannot prove that there is a need in our province for the transmission lines. These lines are a massive overbuild, at least a $16 billion overbuild that will be transferred onto consumers and future generations. This is nothing short of complete and utter contempt for taxpayers, and the government should be ashamed. And if the government is so sure that these transmission lines are necessary, why does this legislation not include an independent needs assessment for the current projects as well as future projects? Mr. Speaker, no one, except the government members themselves, seem like they want the Bill 50 transmission lines to go ahead. Everyone will suffer from the higher electricity rates these lines will bring to Alberta consumers and businesses. My proposal to the government is simple. Expand Bill 8 so that current as well as future transmission projects will be subject to an independent needs assessment process. Let the independent experts, let the experts in our province review the Bill 50 lines to see if our province truly needs them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member.